Hi, everybody. We can shake hands over the phone. This is Mike Leahy talking, and Bart Fannin will be joining us as well or be helping me in this presentation. For those of you who are not familiar with our company, Leahy Consulting, we have been in business forever. We have worked with Macola and our experts in Macola forever. We specialize in manufacturing and distribution. We're based in Cincinnati, Ohio. And one of the things that we do is we develop software that makes your standard Macola software much easier to use. So over time, because we've worked with Macola customers for so long, is we know areas that the software needs a little bit of help to make things easier to use. So let's talk about the types of companies that can benefit from the Demand Planner software. And the first one is those of you who have vendors where you have very long lead times, in some cases months, and a lot of that is really the result of ordering from overseas, where you have long lead times overseas, and then you have shipping lead time as well. So vendors with very long lead times, you're typically ordering from overseas vendors. You're typically ordering from multiple locations overseas. And you have uncertain on-the-water shipping lead times. And to make all of this work, another complexity is that in order to schedule and order for months in advance, you don't have any customer orders for that time period. So you are developing and relying on a sales forecast. And the whole time, what our software is doing is it's confirming with you, that's a real-time dashboard, confirming with you that you have enough on order to meet either customer orders or a forecast that's constantly changing. So what our dashboard is doing, because we are in the dashboard business, our Demand Planner dashboard is providing you a real-time reality of what are there enough. Do you have orders? Do you have existing purchase orders that are out there, given the lead times, given the on-the-water time, that will satisfy either customer orders that go out several weeks or months, or your planning forecast, and it's telling you that real time. So what this software allows you to do is, like if management would allow you to do that, you would just you'd place one purchase order right today, one purchase order for the entire year, $100 million, $50 million purchase order. Well, you can't do that. Nobody has the money to do that or is allowed to. So what you're needing to do is you're needing to have a tool, a software that'll help you plan, not ordering too early, not ordering too late. And in addition to that, a lot of companies have a budget, a monthly budget that they need to stay within, and that our software is telling you that as you go along. Plus, the objective is, if you are ordering from overseas, is to fill the container. So you'll see how we are calculating the cubic meter dimensions. We're helping you fill the container, and you can see how much you need to go. Also, when it comes time to place a purchase order, and it might be for 10 items or it might be for 100 items, there's no manual keying. We're using our very popular purchase order generator to do the generation of the Macola purchase order and then pushing that into Macola. So this is the framework that we're working in. And again, this is the mantra of our dashboard software, that Macola has the data, but Pulse brings you the information. In other words, Macola has the raw data, but what our Pulse software is doing is converting that into information to help you make better and faster decisions. So let's switch over to the software right now. Okay. So this Demand Planner is just another tab. You can see this is our dashboard software. Most of you are familiar with that. And this is just a tab, a separate licensed tab that fits into the purchasing module. And what we're going to do today is we're going to make believe, and first of all, our demonstration data is locked into June 20th. So when we look out, you'll see that month 1, month 2, month 3 is starting from June 20th. So we're selecting vendor 6000 for the Cincinnati location. And as soon as you key those in, then this list of all of the items that can be ordered from that vendor, that's showing. So there's several items there. Okay. So let's go over some of the buttons that we have, and we can introduce some of them as we go along. There's buttons along the top here. A lot of people will be concerned, what are all those buttons? Do I need to worry about them? Well, if you're in the middle of something and want to start over again, you hit this button to reset. If it's lunchtime or you want to continue the next day, you can save these and pick them up the next day. The purchase order function, this is where you're actually going to generate the purchase order. But what becomes important as you're going along, remember the forecast is at the finished good level. It says, okay, we're going to sell 1,000 of these, but those 1,000 may have hundreds of components that make that up. So it's important as you go along, if you're uncertain, to be able to see what the bill of material looks like for this finished item. And sometimes you lose perspective of what is your forecast. You know, is the software calculating things right so you can see your forecast? Then we also have data integrity. I'll go ahead and press this. This is data integrity checks that are important for you to use the software properly. So for example, it's saying here, it couldn't find a negotiated price. So it's expecting if you're going to order from a vendor that you have populated the item vendor. So there's several items here that didn't get set up right, but we'll continue without that. Then the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click this button that says calculate suggestions. So in other words, when we first come in here, it's a blank slate. And what it's doing now is it's calculating suggestions. Now, if we look at the columns here, let's kind of look at what we have. We have an upper section which shows the items, and then we have a lower section which is showing you your cost and your cubic meter sizing as we go along. You'll see that as there's a slide bar here. So the first thing that we're looking at is we can see our safety stock, we can see reorder levels and so on. Then on this next panel is we're looking at historical sales data. So there's a lot of, and you can remove some of these fields. I have removed a lot of the fields. There's some real complex fields that are helpful for advanced users, but not at the beginning. So this is basic sales data. So that's the first section, just to kind of give you a point of reference. Then we're saying, okay, this is the current month. Okay, this is where we're starting from. We're saying right now, as of June 20th, this is what we have on hand. This is what we have open quantities of customer orders. This is what's in transit and so on. So basically it's saying here that, I'll slide this over a little bit. This is basically saying for the current month, green means we're okay. So even starting at the beginning of the month, the beginning of our process here, we're short on some items. Now, what that means is that you can't do anything about that. In other words, this is saying if I have a 90-day lead time, which I think all of these items have 90-day lead times, there's nothing that I can do short of expediting with the vendor and maybe flying it over from China on an airplane. There's nothing I can do. So that's telling you you're in trouble there and you're going to have to figure out some alternative. Green means you're okay. So that's our current month. And then we're basically saying this is our beginning balance. This is our beginning on-hand balance to start our forecasting. Now, one of the things that is a little bit tough when you're starting with this is that your mindset is that I am planning today for not orders that I want to place in November or October. I am planning for deliveries in November and October and December. So I'm planning today with my 90-day lead times as an example. So as you go through this, what you're going to see is if we jump ahead, for example, into the month of August, I should mention to you what these color codings mean. This kind of tan color means sorry, it's too late. In other words, I can't do anything about this minus right now. Within my, what I have on hand, what I have pending deliveries, and my lead time, there's nothing that I can do about that. So basically, if it's this cream color, it means you're stuck and you're going to have to figure out what to do. I'm going to jump ahead right here. Okay, the first time that we can start planning is in September. These are for deliveries in September. So again, we are in June, we're on June 20th, and our mindset is saying, okay, we can't wait until August with a 90-day lead time to get it in September. So we have to be thinking about that today. So when we press this button that said calculate suggestions, if you work the math here, it says that we need to order 1,200. I can slide down and show you some more here. We need to order 2,000. We need to order 300. We need, and so on and so on. We can increase this number or leave it the way it is. And if we want to, we can one by one say, I'm approving them. In other words, the system at this point has calculated based on lead times, based on safety stock, based on reorder levels, based on the forecast and existing customer orders, that we need to order 2,000 to be delivered in September. Now, you may want to increase that because sales are increasing for some reason, and your factors don't. But this is what the system is doing for you, and then you can override these if you want to. But let's play this out just for a minute. I'm going to, instead of click, click, click here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say approve all visible suggestions. So I'm going to click on this, and you can see how it checked everything. So at this point, I'm ready to place a purchase order for delivery in September with this vendor, 6,000, for all of these items. And I'm going to show you how we'll do that. We're going to go to purchase orders. We're going to click here. It knows we're on vendor 6,000. It knows it's Cincinnati. And here are my planning periods. I'm going to choose September. And at this point, and for those of you who have never seen our purchase order generator, this is our purchase order generator. So it has generated, in this case here, there's 64 items that need to be ordered. And here they are. These are the quantities. So if we were to go back, we would see this 2,000, this 3,000, and so on. So for those of you who aren't familiar with our purchase order generator, the big thing is no keying, no manual keying. And from here, I can change things around. I can create a released or an unreleased purchase order within Macola, depending on how you want to do things. If the payment terms were not correct, you can change those. So in other words, everything on here, including the vendor, you can change this. But down here, and our test data is not real good for this. We are seeing what the cost is. So if you have a budget of $1 million for the month of September, you just spent $521,000 of that. We don't have good data in here to calculate the CBMs, but you would be able to see how much of the container will be ordered just for this Seattle fasteners. So, and you can, if I press save right now, what it's going to do is it's going to actually generate the Macola purchase order. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to, my test data is such that I have to be able to protect the test data. So, but that's what would happen. You would hit save, and then you'd go back here, and now we're planning out what do we need to order today to make it in October. Okay, so at this point, these numbers would change because back here in September, all this would go away, and these ending quantities would be updated. And now we're going to do the same thing in October. So we're going to repeat the process. In other words, we are going to repeat the process of ordering what we need to order all the way out into our planning period. When I first set this up, I told it, here's our setup here. I told it that I want to plan 6 months at a time. So even going all the way out in December, it's telling me that I need to order for delivery in December. So let's go back over a little bit. Let's kind of review this again. We start at the very beginning. It's telling us our safety stock basic information about this item. And of course, these have to be accurate. And then it's saying, okay, this is sales information if you want to get a feel for what's happening. One thing that I didn't talk about before, in addition to our lead time, this is our transit time. And what we do is in the setup here, you can say, okay, it's a 90-day on the water time from Shanghai. It is a 60-day from Vietnam, from so on and so on. So I can set up all of my shipping ports, because remember what is happening. You're not ordering this from Shanghai for delivery into the U.S. You are ordering this for delivery in Shanghai. You have to take possession of it in Shanghai, and then once you take possession of it, then you have to put it on the ship. You have to put it in the container and put it on the ship then for another 60 days or so on. So this is helping you with that transit. I didn't talk about this column before. This is telling me my earliest restocking date. In order to be successful, this is I have to order by then. My earliest outage date, this is saying that if I don't do anything, I'm going to be out at this date. This is my earliest outage date. And then we looked earlier, we saw this is our current month on hand, so on. So we're basically saying at the end of the current month, this would be basically our ending month inventory quantities, which then will be the beginning of the month quantities for the month of July. And we're noticing again, our cream color says too late. It is too late to do anything and have an impact. I can't place any purchase orders and expect them to be delivered in July, because that's just 2 weeks from now. So these numbers can continue, and the color coding is saying I'm in trouble or I'm okay. And I'm now going into the month of August. Again, I can't do anything. It's too late to be ordering for August. So the first month that I can be ordering is in the month of September. And earlier when I clicked on the calculate suggestions box, it populated these. It told us you need to order 2433, and this is based on order minimums. If there was an order multiple out here that it had to accommodate, it would accommodate all of that. So this is saying this is the minimum that I need per my on-hand quantity, per my safety stock, per my reorder level, per my order multiple, per my order, my min and max. This is what I need to be ordering. And then I said, rather than go in and click these OK one by one, I said, okay, I'm going to approve for this period, and it tells me period 3. And at that point, these were locked in, and I placed a purchase order. We'll go and do that again. And that purchase order then, I would save that. I would save that purchase order. For, in this case, it's 64 line items. Oh, and yes, we have all kinds of flexibility here. If you decided you didn't want to, if you wanted to get rid of some of these items for whatever reason, that's what these plus and minus signs are here. So you can delete these if you didn't want them. Everything on here is changeable, including the vendor. So at that point, then all of this would go away. All of these numbers are ending quantity or beginning of the month quantity for October would be updated. Then we would go through the process of ordering again in October. We would click, we would say we're now in October. We're going to approve all of those. We're going to place purchase orders. We're going to click the purchase order just like we did before. We're going to click the purchase orders, and this time instead of September, it's going to be for October, and so on. So what's cool about this is that if I pick this up tomorrow and I refresh this, you know, all of there won't be any orders out there anymore, and immediately I can start seeing for my current month, where am I in trouble? I could start seeing I can't make any impact here. Where am I in trouble? And then you can focus on the exceptions. Now, one thing that we didn't show before was if I had committed to that purchase order, then these numbers down here would show up. In other words, this is my cost. Remember, we said earlier that theoretically I have a budget of $1 million a month, and I just spent $572,000. That would show here. And then if I have my CBMs populated properly in Macola, which in my case I don't have those populated properly, it would then calculate how much of the container am I going to be filling right now. Because if your strategy is to fill the container, then you might go back and say, no, I'm going to bump this up from 2,400 to 4,000 to help fill the rest of the container. And this number of months that you go out can be calculated. Let me show you how this works. This is my setup, and I say to it, in this case, I want to forecast 6 months. This is my forecast scenario. It's asking how many months do we want to be using it for a historical. And down here, this is where I would manage. In this case, I had Beijing set up as a 35-day, not very good, accurate date there. But that's where you would record all of your lead times, your on-the-water lead times. So let's stop for a minute right now. Bart, are people asking questions? Is there anything that stands out that I haven't answered? Are there?
Let's see, I've got one person, Jaslyn, you've raised your hand. You could actually type the question in if you'd like. And if not, we could unmute you at the end to ask your question. Here it comes.
But why don't I unmute everybody?
Well, she's got it in here. She wants to know what statistical model is being used
for the forecast.
Yes.
I assume that's what that means. Well, it could be anything. If you're using Forecast Pro, and for those of you who are using Forecast Pro or are thinking about it, we have an interface between Macola, because you have to get your historical data out of Macola, get it into Forecast Pro, and then once Forecast Pro does this thing, then you have to import that data back into Macola, and we have a utility for that. But Forecast Pro, if we want to use that as an example, it calculates every item based on one of 5, I think it's one of 5 or one of 4 forecasting models, and it tells you which one it uses. But the forecast, the forecast that we're using today is just basically, we generated on our own. So the forecast is only going to be as good as you want it to be. Now, we really love Forecast Pro. It's the $100,000 forecasting software that they give away for $20,000 or $25,000. So anyone who wants to get more sophisticated, that's almost another subject, but it's very, very good. Hopefully I answered your question there. I'm going to unmute everybody in case anybody wants to. I think people are self-muted. Any other questions, Bart, that you're seeing coming in?
No other questions. I was just typing to Jocelyn. Feel free to ask a follow-up or an additional questions, and everybody here on the list, feel free to ask any as well.
Yep. today's a little bit different than our normal webinars in that it's a much shorter, more concise presentation. I'm looking down through my notes here and trying to see if there's something that I've missed. No, I think this pretty much covers what is involved. You know, it's an iterative cycle. I'll start over again. I'm going to reset all these orders. Takes a moment to reset. And then you're basically opening this up. You can choose all vendors, or you can choose just one particular vendor. It's probably easier one at a time. This is telling me these are my data integrity checks. Before I didn't show you what happens when you click on the bill of material, but here are all the bills of material in that you would use then here as your parent item number filter. And then this is our forecast. A little bit hard to read here, but this is our forecast. You really have to blow it up a little bit here. And this could have come from Forecast Pro. Again, the data integrity, we saw that a minute ago. But from here, the very first thing you would do would be to say calculate suggestions. Because at this point, if I slide all the way out here, the grays are all blank. I'm going to say calculate suggestions. So what this did then was slide up here. It populated all these. I sorted it down by what it was. So these are all the suggestions. And if you wanted to keep these suggestions just as they are, or you can modify them. If I do this correctly. Let's say you wanted to make that 8,000. And then instead of having to click each one of these, you can say I'm in month 3 and I'm going to approve all these. Then I'm going to click on the purchase order. It knows the vendor, it knows the location. September is our date. Here is the purchase order. Now, for those of you who may not want the demand planner, you're seeing the purchase order generator in action. You know, this is a separate module as well, the purchase order generator. And typically, the purchase order generator is going to be based on either reorder levels, or is going to be based on CP orders coming out of MRP, or it could be, we have several customers using it for outside operations like heat treating or deburring or cleaning or anodizing, where you're sending it out as part of a shop order. But this is really cool, no keying at all. And again, I mentioned if you're changing your mind on some of these, you can highlight the item and hit the minus sign and it will remove that. Everything is changeable, including the vendor. And when I hit save, in this case, it would be an unreleased order, but you could have it copied as a released order. Then at that point, all this information gets updated, and we're now into the next month, and so on and so on.
Mike, there's a question from Monty, if you didn't go over it already. What's the watch list column used for?
It is the column that tells you that you need to be considering this item. Yeah, Monty, that what I wanted to do to eliminate your question was to have removed that at the very beginning, but it's just telling you these are items that you need to be looking at. But again, this fits into more advanced things. So what I would say is at the beginning, that's not worth looking at that. It's just something to distract from. But as you're looking down here and you're seeing that you have no safety stock, you know, this is giving you feedback that maybe there needs to be safety stock, or the order multiples are wrong, or the mins are wrong, minimum order quantity is wrong. So this can be used as a feedback mechanism to tell you there's cleanup work within Macola that needs to be done. So as we wrap up, today was going to be a short one, and we appreciate everybody joining us today. what typically can happen is after you hang up, it's like, oh, I forgot to ask this question. So you can feel free. I think everybody has my email address or Bart's email address, and feel free, at worst case, if you're using Dashboard, go up to Help and About, and then Monty, who just asked the question, if you click on here, this will send him an email, and then he can forward that to me. So thank you. For those of you who are customers of ours already, we appreciate your ongoing support. If you're just getting to know us, hopefully today was a good introduction and get a feel for the software that we make that allows Macola to be used more easily.